All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Milan Reports episode. It's not a post-match discussion. It's is a interesting one. I'm joined by the whole crew here. We'll be discussing a lot of the Milan transfer news, some rumors, some departures, and give you insights from the Milan Reports angle. And hope that you guys go ahead and enjoy this special episode. But I haven't been able to go ahead and reconnect here with my friends since we last won the Scudetto, which was a few weeks back. So I want to go ahead and see how everyone's feeling and how's everyone excited since now we are champions of Italy. I'll go ahead and start with you, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well, Riccardo. I know the last time we talked was moments after the victory over Sassuolo when we were champions, but I want to say hello to Sabrina and Miguel, my fellow champions of Italy. How are you guys doing?
So good. It's been a nice couple of weeks of no stress, just enjoying the win and watching all the content that Milan's been putting out of behind the scenes stuff and just getting to relive that almost every day.
Miguel?
It's been pretty good. Can't complain. Scudetto was a dream come true, so I'm thriving.
Before we get Riccardo, before we start, going into our show here, I want to ask you guys: did you guys go and get that black Milan shirt that came out like immediately after? Because I know it's sold out in like 40 minutes. I got it, and I was asking if you guys
did. Oh no, yeah. I wasn't able to get it.
It was a hot item, and they tried to put out the white one, and everyone's like, "No, we want the black
one." I want the black one. Yeah, I've been waiting for them to restock it.
Yeah. I just bought the Ibrahimovic Authentic too, and then I saw that they're actually at Casa Milan, the store. They're stamping the badge for anyone who brings their jersey in, and it stinks. It's like I'm not gonna take a flight to go get that printed. So I was hoping I had a plug there, but the small price to pay for being champions, I guess, right?
Well, at least they're shipping it out to you here in the United States. And we'll have to go ahead and wait for our once they go ahead and stock up again to get our copies, because the black one is kind of nice. But you said it, we do have a pretty juicy episode today. And with Milan being the champions of Italy, there's been a lot of excitement the weeks following. We got to see on social media the players and the parade. I know us here on the other side of the Atlantic didn't get an opportunity to go ahead and celebrate with the rest of the Milan city and fans, but nevertheless, we had our own celebrations here. And with that, a lot of news has come out with the Cardinale and Redbird acquisition here, and a lot of new transfers being linked with Milan. Just some of the names I'll throw out there, like Renato Sanches, Sven Botman. I know you've heard those two names being thrown around a lot, especially recently. And we'll go ahead and add more input to some of these players. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and just discuss some of the players rumored. With that, guys in the chat, if you've heard of any rumors, go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. We want to go ahead and hear what you've heard regarding the Milan side. We have more than a handful of players here. At least I wrote down more than a handful of ones. So plenty of that. Anyone specific you guys think we should go ahead and start with?
I think we should start with the two main men from Lille, I think, Renato Sanches and Botman, which if you want me to, I could take us into the whole, I guess, situations regarding both, Riccardo, or if you have your rundown, you can take it away.
What I'll go ahead and do here is just throw on this quick graphic about Renato Sanches here. And then if you want to go ahead and put in your input, Matt, I'm not going to go ahead and stop you here. So should only go ahead and take me a moment here to throw in the nice graphic here from our friends at Milan Reports. I'm sure you guys could see this.
Yeah, so of course, Renato Sanches, let's start with him first. Obviously, he's a player that Milan have been eyeing, sizing up for really since, I want to say, January. They made a push for him in January. Obviously, it's tough to get those deals over the line. Typically those clubs want to keep them on because they have objectives, and rightfully so. But he's a player that Milan have been looking at for months now. And in the build-up, of course, here we are with him having just 1 year left on his contract. It looks as though that Milan's going to get this done. It seems like a formality at this point, according to Vito, according to multiple sources. Milan have agreed to personal terms with Renato Sanches himself. He will earn, I believe, $3 million net per season. So it's a really favorable wage for a player of his caliber, his age. It's the exact sweet spot Milan want when they're talking about their wage bill, when they're talking about his age, when they're talking about his positional versatility. The offer currently on the table for Lille seems to be 18 million plus bonuses. I see this one getting done as early as next week. I know Vito has been giving us some information in our WhatsApp chat. Just to give maybe my own insight on the player himself, and then I can let you guys speak on him as well. I think Renato Sanches is a sound addition. Technical ability, great dribbler. I know Milan played Lille a couple seasons ago in the Europa League, and he had a brilliant display. I mean, he was going by Sandro Tonali. He was dribbling by players, those progressive plays forward. But this was something I was even thinking about too with the profile that Milan has typically been looking for with a lot of their signings. And I don't know if you guys want to maybe speak on this too. They're getting young players. Yes, they're getting players with technical ability, but they're also getting good athletic players, which is something that I find is extremely different to previous managements, right? They're getting players that you can play with the ball, can move, can carry the ball forward. I mean, you look up and down this lineup, you see Magnon's a great athlete. I think he's a much better athlete, if we're being honest, than Gigio Donnarumma is. He's agile, he's quick, can play with his feet. Tomori, Kalulu, Teo Hernandez. In the midfield, Benacer, Tonali, Kessie. Up front, you're getting a guy like Rafael Leao. So I think they're looking for that type of complete package when they do make these signings. But what do you guys see in Renato Sanches so far, from, I guess, what you've seen from him, and also your general thoughts and feelings about this, what seems like a formality at this point?
I know there's definitely some concerns about his injuries. But I think the good part about that is he's not going to be someone that we're relying on 100%. So I'm not too caught up on the injuries part of it. The fact that he wants to come, they've already agreed to personal terms, where we're seeing the opposite with Botman now, where that's becoming a little more tricky. I think he'd be a great addition to the squad. When he first burst on the scene, had so much potential. He was hyped up so much, and I think winning that Euro with Portugal kind of maybe hindered him a little bit. Yeah, because people just expected him to be elite right off the bat. So I think he's kind of, because he was taken, a little bit down to earth after that, he's been able to just work in the background and kind of build up that like potential again. And I think that if we got him, it would be a great addition to the squad. So I'm really excited if he's going to join, especially if we can get that done really early in the Mercato.
Miguel?
Yeah, my thoughts on this, I think it's a good transfer for us. I think it's a good addition to the team. Like we said, versatile, quality midfielder. He's definitely going to help out, and I know people are worried about, his injuries. But you got to think about it, the same thing with Ibra. Ibra came and they're like, he's 39, he's not going to do anything. And I think that's kind of another thing that's interesting with the recruitment that Milan is doing now. They're kind of gambling on players who haven't had a chance or want a chance to prove themselves. And as you mentioned before, Renato Sanches made that transfer to Bayern and it didn't really work out. And he went to Swansea and, now he's playing at Lille. So this is another stepping stone for him in his career to go to a big club and make a big impact. And I think that him having that chip on his shoulder and already wanting to come here in a environment where young players are growing and thriving, I think it's going to benefit him really well, and I think he can do some big things here at Milan. So I'm happy with this transfer.
I think too, guys, that when I look at the next wave of young additions that we could potentially make, I think there's a lot of outside eyes looking at Milan's project, how exciting it is, how young it is, and how successful a lot of these young players have grown to be at Milan. I think there's something to be said about that, right? I mean, you're telling me Mike Maignan or Rafael Leao or, even Ballo-Touré, they're not talking or chirping to maybe Renato Sanches and Botman saying, hey, like, Milan's a great place to play. This is a great step for you. Those sorts of things I think are very important when you're speaking on what it looks like from optics, because it's easier for you to throw money at a player. It's easier for you to say, hey, we're going to give you this opportunity, this and this and this. But now that a lot of players have, to Sabrina, your point, players like Teo Hernandez, who, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, fallout, Real Sociedad. And then he came back to Milan and everyone's like 20 million for like a player that's really not really fulfilling his potential. It's a bit of a risk for Milan. He repaired his value. He repaired his potential. And now look where he's at, right? He's with the French national team. He's one of the best left backs in world football. So I look at some similarities with this potential addition for Sanches. Miguel, that you mentioned too, he's had that sort of humble journey from being Euro young player of the tournament, having that big move at Bayern, didn't work out, and then repairing his value, getting his career back on track. And I think it speaks to the mental aspect and the mental growth that he's taken as a young player, where he's able to overcome those difficult situations. And now he's going to be playing for a club like Milan and being asked to play a key role. So I'm really excited about this. But Riccardo, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I just wanted to go ahead and say, coming off winning the Scudetto, I know that Maldini and company are going to go ahead and look to reinforce Milan to continue to challenge for the Scudetto and those Champions League spots. And now that we are in, I'll go ahead and answer this question right off. What consists of before I answer that, I'll just go ahead and say, now that we are looking to go ahead and be at the top and be one of those teams that not only is consistently making Champions League, but hopefully even making it out of the group stage, the fact that we're looking at Renato Sanches, a player who's supposed to go ahead and, just like Bitfrost here mentioned, replace in my eyes Kessie, who is departing here pretty soon. I think this is a smart move. I think, although despite a few injury problems and a little bit of hype at the beginning of the season, I think he brings a little bit of those qualities. And we've seen Pioli use some of the center midfielders in the 10 role. Right. I think he brings a little bit of those qualities that when Kessie and Krunic played in the 10 position, they brought a little bit of their defensive abilities as well to slow down players like Brozovic and receiving the ball in other teams' 6. I think Renato Sanches can do that as well and even continue to work on that, but also brings a little bit more on the attack that perhaps a lot of the other two guys didn't. And especially with Brahim Diaz lacking a little bit, if he doesn't find his form to start for next season, at least we have an additional player who can go ahead and break those lines in the attack because, we discussed the offense here a few times towards the second half of the season of Milan. So any, reinforcements there, whether that be minimal, like the inclusion of Renato Sanches, I think it's a positive move for Milan. And we're still not spending a lot of money to go ahead and go out and getting a big name player. I think we're trying to go ahead and, just like Miguel mentioned here, take the opportunity on some of these players right now who maybe are on part of their journey, who didn't live up to the hype, just like at the beginning of his career, who's trying to find that form again, didn't work out of Bayern. Now he's at Lille. I think it's a big move for him coming to the champions of Serie A. Milan is a big historic club, and we are in Champions League and can provide him some good minutes in that competition. I put up his stats earlier. I didn't include his Champions League stats because he did play 6 matches, but he didn't record anything in terms of goals and assists, although that's not what we analyze midfielders. Just didn't include those stats for League One. He showed a little bit more of that attacking threat. And, when I was taking a look at some of his stats here on Transfer Market earlier today, see a little bit of that hunger in league over a long stretch period of time compared to that small period of time that he played Champions League. So overall, again, I'll say one more time, Renato Sanches, this is a positive move coming to Milan. I think it helps both parties here, both Milan. I think it's also an addition and the player.
Before we move on, I think, we can touch on the maybe potential concerns with injuries. All right. Obviously, when you throw injuries and you throw Milan into the bucket, it kind of gives people, this impression that this may not be the way to go. But I think I haven't been this excited about an addition in a while, as far as what the potential upside can be. When we got Rafael Leao, I think there was a lot of potential there, but we didn't really see a body of work that vast from Leao. He didn't have a ton of experience under him, and everyone was looking at this saying 25 to 30 million for a player with minimal experience at the top level. This is kind of a bit of a risk for Milan. And in a couple of seasons, you saw us reap the benefits of that. So I think with Renato Sanches, if I'm being honest, and we're speaking tactically what he can do, because I know the question was, is he replacing Kessie? Where are we going to lose some physicality in the midfield? Tonali came on very strong last year from a defensive standpoint. His fitness levels were night and day. And I think what Sanches gives us is he gives us that flexibility. He can play as a 10. He can play out wide. He can take guys on. And this was something I tweeted a couple weeks ago in looking at, where are the goals coming from? I think Milan need to be able to spread that out a bit, spread the love, and be able to get goals from other areas. Midfielders, that's something that if you look at a lot of the top sides across Europe, they're able to get goal production from some of their midfielders. I know our formation is more conducive to playing more defensive, but if you have a guy, let's say, for example, like Sanches playing, as a number 10, and you have Leao and you have a right winger, hopefully it's someone better than Salamakers and Messias, and you have Benacer Tonali anchoring him, that's going to give Sanches so much more freedom to go forward, to take shots, take guys on, penetrate, get the ball into the final third. And I think that's where you might see some more goal production and more assists. So that element, I'm very intrigued to see that maybe Pioli can utilize Sanches in a way that helps elevate his numbers and helps him be more of a force from an attacking standpoint.
And again, we've seen Pioli use a few midfielders in that 10 role. They're not usually that position. So will we miss that physicality Kessie brought to the team? Absolutely. That's one of the qualities that I think absolutely suits him, that I thought to Barcelona fans, you're getting an absolute great player in terms of physicality and in duality in the midfield. Is it going to be a massive, massive drop-off? No, I think Renato Sanches is still a pretty physical player who's going to go ahead and put in his shift. And again, if he is going to go play higher up the field, we've seen a little bit of Pioli press, I guess we'll call it, in matches against Sassuolo, Lazio, who like to play out of the back, Inter, who like to play through Brozovic. So it's just an additional player who can go ahead and help out in the press up top. So will we miss the physicality? Yeah, I think Kessie's physicality was something different, but it's not a huge drop-off. Our players are pretty aggressive and physical themselves. They throw themselves to the ball, especially towards the end of the season. We saw them dive in front of those shots. Tomori, Kalulu, Hernandez, Benacer. So I guess we'll see in terms of how aggressive the players will be starting next season. New season means new mentality here. But overall, it seems like everyone here is on board and positive with the Renato Sanches coming to Milan. Again, Matt and Vito will go ahead, hopefully keep us in the loop here in the group chat. Let us know as much detail as possible. I know that this is in the closing stages here of finalizing a deal, but not the only Lille person that Milan is interested in. Over at center back position, Sven Botman, another name that's been thrown around here for the past few weeks. And now it looks like there might be some changes in the stories. Milan not be super interested in the player. Go ahead and throw a little bit of the stats here while it pops up. There it is. Sven Botman played 32 matches here. He was ranked 1v1 in the 1v1 index. Excuse me, he was ranked 6th in a 1v1 index across League One. I was reading into his stats on 1v1.com here. He is another profile that Milan has been looking at for quite a while. I'm sure you guys know. And that is because towards somewhere between the middle of the season here, when we lost Romagnoli, we already lost Simon Kjaer. The beginning of the season, Milan had to go ahead and experiment with Pierre Kalulu playing center back. And that experiment worked out really well for everyone. But it still raises a lot of questions that Romagnoli is not going to be a Milan player next season. And Gabbia here has not fully stepped up, at least in my opinion, to become a Milan center back. So right now question is who's going to go ahead and pair up with Tomori. Simon Kjaer coming back from injury. Players perform differently after coming back from serious injuries like that. So is Sven Botman a profile that we still are interested? Guys, I'll go ahead and leave it up to any of you. What are your thoughts here regarding this transfer?
I think that it would be a good move, but seeing now that things are kind of stalling, I think Lille, from what Vito had said, is just trying to kind of engage clubs in a bidding war. that you're seeing Newcastle's back in and back interested, and even I think he had said Manchester United as well. It's one of those things where, do we really want to get into a bidding war for the player? I mean, he could do well for us, but at the same time, I don't really want to break the bank on something like that when, you know, the question will be, what are we going to do with Kalulu next year? Is he just going to be put back onto the bench? So if it's a case of him coming at a really high price, then not really in on it. But we all saw that video of him with the national team when he was asked about Milan. He had that little smirk on his face. So if you're going to read into stuff like that, it seems like the player does want to join, but you have to think about the club as well. It's not just dealing with the player at this point. We have to deal with the club. So I saw somebody in the chat was asking that if he doesn't pan out, if Bremer is a concrete possibility. And just from seeing from different Inter sites, I don't think he is. I would love that. I would personally love that, especially because he has the Serie A experience, Bremer. But at the same time, I just think he's already agreed to the personal terms with Inter. They're now just the clubs are dealing with each other because he did renew his contract this year with Torino. So I don't see that as a concrete possibility for us, but you never know in the Mercato, because a few seasons ago, we thought the same thing about Tonali, and now he's playing for Milan. So definitely if Botman doesn't happen, I'd like to see us go in really hard for Bremer. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit uneasy with this whole thing of multiple clubs being in on it and Lille kind of trying to test the waters to see what they could get.
I'll go ahead and ask here. If the introduction, let's say, Botman does not happen here for Milan and Milan decides to go ahead and go for Bremer. Now, does the situation change here for Kalulu, Calabria, even possibly Florenzi at the right back? Is Kalulu going to go ahead and get minutes as a center back, right back? What does his situation look like if we did go ahead and go and get for someone of Bremer's profile?
I think I've thought about this whole situation, and I knew it was going to come to this. The more good performances Kalulu put in, and I saw a lot of people talking about it, saying, well, do we really need a central defender? Kalulu came on strong. He played really well with Tomori. Do we really need to spend this much on a central defender? Yes, because Kjaer, as much as we love our Viking King here, he's coming back from a major injury. He's 33, 34. You still don't know if he's going to come back strong and be the same player he was before his injury. And then you have Gabbia, who, in my estimation, I think he's actually going to go on loan if we bring in another central defender, because I think the minutes are going to be soaked up by those main guys. So where's he going to play? Unless he's our fifth back option, I don't know. So we definitely do need a central defender. I think we have to get that out of the way here, because we have to start thinking big picture. For Serie A, like we were last year, we would be bowed out of the group and we had majority of the season from January onward, where we just strictly had Serie A and sprinkling of Coppa Italia games. Then you can get away with what we got away with. But if we're trying to aim higher and we're trying to be a team that goes deeper into the Champions League and doesn't really have to bring a title chase down to the final match day, we have that sort of confidence, we have that depth, you need another central defender. And I think if we can get Botman, it's always great to get a player that really does truly want to join us, because I get that impression from, that interview that's been circulating. I get the impression from the fact that we've been working on him and Sanchez since January, and these players really do want to join Milan. So there's something to be said about a player that really sees the vision, sees the potential in this project. But the one thing, as Sabrina, as you were mentioning Bremer, and as Bitfrost in the comments here mentioned Bremer as well, I find something interesting with how Inter's project is shaping up and how their defense is shaping up, and ultimately how the rest of their market can go, right? Because I think they do have to sell some players. I think from everything I've been reading about their financial situation, they have to make some sort of significant sacrifice. But Milan Skriniar has been vocally expressing how much he wants to stay. He wants to sign a new deal, despite interest from PSG in the Premier League. I know Pep liked him quite a bit a couple of years ago. He wants to stay at Inter. And Bastoni the same way.
His agent came out today and made a statement saying he's not going anywhere.
His agent saying he wants to honor his contract. He wants to stay. And then you have De Vrij. So Inter would essentially have to sell one of those guys because Bremer is not going to be a fourth option in that team, right? Like it's pretty clear that he's made significant strides forward, so he's not going to be settling for a fourth back option. Maybe the opportunity for Milan is there. I mean, he's Brazilian. I know he's potentially going to play for the Italian national team. I know that's something that's being talked about. We'll see because we need him, right? It can't be Mancini.
No, oh my God, no.
But so I think, you make a good point, Sabrina, and, guys, you guys, give me your thoughts on this too. I think people rush to judgment and they say this player's done, that player's done. Things can change quickly. Opportunities that maybe weren't there are now there. Maybe Inter say, you know what, we have guys that we want to keep and retain. We're going to try and sell other players and build with this defensive line. Bremer pivots. He maybe wants to stay in Italy and he goes to a club like Milan, right? Who knows? But I think you're reeling it back to the whole Botman thing. I'd love to have Botman, left-footed central defender. I think he would pair tremendously well with Tomori. He's physical. You even brought up his stats, Riccardo. 3 goals. I mean, I like a player that can get production, can be a goal threat in the air. I know Inter, that's something they really thrive on from set-piece situations. Skriniar is a colossus. Bastoni is a big presence. He can dribble the ball. De Vrij, they got guys who can beat you in the air on corners. Tomori, I know he had the goal against Juve a couple seasons ago from header, but he doesn't strike me as that type of central defender, a big aerial presence. So
he's been trying, but it hasn't worked out.
yeah, he's a great player. I love Tomori, but I think having that varying profile like Botman would be massive. I'll take Bremer too, but Miguel, Riccardo, what do you guys think?
Well, I do want to go ahead and ask. I'll ask this question here. It sounds like whether it is Botman or Bremer, the question of does Milan need a center back to add to that depth is a yes right now.
Yeah,
am I correct here?
So.
Any input on Bremer or Botman?
Personally, like we've already said, Botman seems like he wants to come here. I think that he's the ideal replacement for Kjaer once he retires or once his contract ends. And like you said, we don't really know how, Kjaer is going to come back from this injury. And we need that depth if we want to be able to go deep in the Champions League and make it out the group stages, because we saw how playing week to week 2 games really affected us and how injuries came up and scared us. As to the Bremer situation, I really think that Milan have the opportunity to swoop here. When you talk about the situation with Inter, Bastoni's not leaving. His agent just came out and said he's not leaving. Skriniar doesn't want to leave. And even though PSG are going to come bidding for him, he's probably not going to leave. Unless they sell Skriniar and make him the sacrificial lamb to bring in Bremer, that's not going to happen. De Vrij has a year left on his contract. You're not going to get that much from him. You're probably going to get 20-25 million for him. That's not enough for the Bremer move. So Milan really have the opportunity to swoop in if the Botman deal doesn't go the way that it's promised. I know Newcastle, Manchester United are in the mix. They will splash the cash, and I'm pretty sure Lille will be happy to accept that offer. It might suck, but we all have to remember that, soccer is a business now. And this is kind of something that we learned over the past couple of years when we sold Cutrone. It's a business. Got to do what's best for your club, best for your team. It might hurt, it might suck, but life goes on. So I think that we have a chance to get either the 2 center backs. Whoever comes through for us will be a massive help for us. So it's just a matter of time, and we just have to wait and see how things pan out.
I'll ask you this one quick question for you guys, but then we can go on to some maybe attacking transfer rumors that we're linked to. But it seems to me that any sort of potential deal for Bremer, Botman, someone of that caliber, that ilk, it'll cost us upward of 30 to 35 million. And we all know that we will have more money to spend this summer in comparison to previous summers with Redbird, taking the reins here. But my question to you guys is this. It's pretty clear that while central defense is a priority, it's something we do want to address. It can't come at the price and sacrifice of us actually getting impact players at the number 10 position and at right winger. Would you guys agree? Because we've heard links to Zaniolo, De Ketelaere, Lang, a lot of potential big attacking players. So I think it's pretty obvious that we need to still focus on the right wing as our priority, right?
100%. Because this season, I mean, let's be honest, you don't want to harp on the players after just winning the title, but it's kind of miraculous that we did when most games it was like we were playing in 10. Like the right winger was just, it was where our attack went to die so many times that it would be so unwise to not address that this summer, especially because now we are champions. Now we have something to prove. We have to try and repeat, and we have to try and do better in the Champions League. I mean, obviously anything is better than finishing fourth, but ideally progress from the group stage, especially the fact that we're going to be in pot 1 for the draw. So to go into that next season without addressing the right wing would be a huge blunder. And I think management knows. I think they're going to do whatever they can, but if it's getting both done, great. If it's a choice, then for me it's right wing 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I will go ahead and say, us Milan fans know how bad our right wing situation is between the battle of Alexis Salamakers and Junior Messias. If you ask fans outside of Serie A, they probably couldn't even tell you who our right wing is. So that's just where we stand at right now. I think if we are going to go ahead and make an impact in the Champions League, we saw last year, I think in the group stages for the first year back, it was sad not, leaving and performing pretty bad, but just getting the foot in the door and performing against Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, and Porto, who have had recent Champions League, minutes in the few years. I think we did all right there. But if we're struggling in the league in our attack, Sabrina, you said it, made me laugh a little bit. It's where our attack goes to die in the right wing. If that's going to go ahead and be our staple signing, I think it should go ahead and be a little bit big, bold. Someone with Champions League caliber. I think someone who could go ahead. I know that some of these names that have been thrown out, CDK, Noah Lang, Zaniolo, these are all promising talents. Some of them each have their own flaws, whether that be injuries or off the field shenanigans. I think, if we're going to go ahead and continue to be a team that is 1-2 for the Scudetto out of the group stages, then this might be the position that we can go ahead and splash a little bit of cash to have someone with that experience. I think I don't want to go ahead and sit through another season of experimenting. And I know that some of the names that we are linked with are pretty good. I don't personally think we'll go ahead and keep Junior Messias. I think Alexis Salamakers might be the one who will go ahead and compete against someone if we do go ahead and bring him in. But if we do go ahead and bring someone at the right wing position, it's got to go ahead and be someone, again, with big Champions League experience, big profile, and go ahead and splash a little bit the funds there.
Yeah, we got a question or a comment from, I think Salamakers has the potential to be a really good player, but he needs someone who can really take that. I think that's true. I mean, I think the one thing I do, and I was talking to Martino about this, and it was something that I was kind of throwing around in my head, and I looked at him like, on one end, we did renew Salamakers this year. And I know Maldini had that moment with Salamakers when he made like the amount of, I think, 50 appearances or something like that in a Milan shirt. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much said, looking forward to having, seeing much more from you and all those sorts of things. I'm paraphrasing there. But I think at the same time, his value has taken a pretty significant increase from when we purchased him. I think the total cost of that operation was, I think, 7 million. So I would say he's probably around double that right now, if I had to guess. Whereas I think with Messias, if we can get even a little bit less, like I had a little bit of a discount on that deal with Crotone, then maybe you go the route and say, hey, we'll have Messias as our backup, because I think Messias may offer a little bit more from a production standpoint, whereas Salamakers, maybe he could grow to be that player. But I think Milan have shown that they'll take the short-term profit. They did it with Jens Petter Hauger, and everyone was saying, why did we get rid of Jens Petter Hauger? We should have got rid of Samu. Why are we keeping Salamakers? Why did we get Messias? And now it looks like a really good deal, right? And I know at the beginning of this last year, people saw Jens Petter Hauger score 2 goals in his first couple appearances, and the trolling came out from some Milan fans saying Paolo Maldini let this guy go. Guy got 2 goals the entire year, right? So, and Milan made profit on him like that. So I think Milan could potentially think that way, but I think it's almost a certainty that they're not going to keep Macias, Salamakers, and get another right winger, unless, of course, they really envision maybe Salamakers being a little bit more versatile. You can use him in a couple different roles. And the one thing I look at with Salamakers and his potential, he strikes me as like the attacking version of Krunic, where Pioli really likes him. For whatever reason, he sees something in training. He sees something with the way Salamakers plays that would you really see Pioli saying, yeah, we want to get rid of this guy. He seems like a Pioli type guy. So that could work in his favor. But I don't know. I just don't know if Salamakers is the type of guy that can give you 12 goal contributions a year. We haven't seen it, and that's his biggest area of concern. He works hard. He'll play. He'll do anything for the team. But we need guys who can produce. Riccardo, Miguel, Sabrina. Like, when you play in the Champions League, we're coming up against clubs like Chelsea who can start a really good player, and then they bring on 3 really good players, and one of them is like Hakim Ziyech, who's a player that Milan were linked to. And you're looking at this guy, and you're like, well, this guy should start with us, no problem. Milan need to get to that position. And I think fans are starting to come to that realization that there's a Serie A squad build, and then there's a squad build that's suited and capable of doing things better in the Champions League. So I think Milan have to think with that sort of mindset.
Yeah, we saw Liverpool when we played them in the Champions League.
Yeah,
we could barely field a team, and their substitutes that they're bringing on are like world-class players. So it's something that we have to think, as much as Salamakers is a nice guy and he really wants to be at Milan and he really wants to work hard. Are we going to win the Champions League with Salamakers as our starting right wing, like stack up against among the rest of Europe? And he could have a turnaround. Maybe if someone does come in this season who takes that starting role, maybe he'll feel like the pressure is off him a little bit and he'll grow. So not saying right away we just have to give up on him, but he can't be our number one. We can't just rely on him next year based on his performance this year.
Absolutely.
Just want to go ahead and add some more. The type of signings that Milan are looking to do, let's say we go ahead and go for players like Sven Botman. That's a reinforcement to our defense. If we go for Renato Sanches that we mentioned, that's a replacement for Frank Kessie, who's leaving. Another name that we haven't mentioned yet, Divock Origi, that's another reinforcement to our team. I think a signing on the right wing as I mentioned, is a huge statement signing. It has to be something that Milan is cooking, because personally, to me, I think the difference between Salamakers and Macias, it's not a landslide, but it's pretty big. I think Alexis Salamakers is a little bit more potential and that hard work versatility over Macias. But just as someone mentioned here in the chat, Macias is probably a little bit better for the short term. And we saw with him coming in to the Milan squad, providing a Champions League goal, assist really quick at the end of the season, finding a little bit of form, providing assists for Leao there. So it's those moments of a little bit of brilliance that he has. So really helpful for us in the short term. But in terms of the long term, I think Alexis Salamakers being the number 2 to a statement signing would be, I don't want to say phenomenal, but ideal, because there's been a few games, post-match discussions where I've discussed Salamakers coming in the 75th minute to kill off games, being an additional player to go ahead and drop back, hold possession, win those fouls. I think that's his game. That's what it looked like his game was, to just go out there, not really make an impact, but to be another player who touches the ball. And it seemed a lot with that our attack wasn't creative. So that's where I'm leaning towards, keeping Salamakers a little bit as the bench players. Hopefully Milan go towards that staple, that signature signing over on the right wing. And there's been a lot of names. And with those names being thrown out, I'll go ahead and screen share one of the. It's not Origi. I know that I just mentioned him, but it's Domenico Berardi. And I know that we talked about bringing in someone with Champions League caliber or experience, someone of a top player. And I know that showing Domenico Berardi doesn't really parallel with what I said, but this man in Serie A is cooking. And he had a pretty great season here. So you can see some of his stats here. This is across all competition that Sassuolo were in, and not just the Serie A. 15 goals, 17 assists, being able to go ahead and be pivotal, important piece of the Sassuolo attack. I will say, though, because we are looking for someone of Champions League quality, of someone who can go ahead and be a big game player, do you think Berardi showed he was a big game player at the last game of the season?
No, I'm just laughing at Derek's comment. Please, God, no. I, I love him. I love Berardi. To me, he's more of a Di Natale type player, not comparing skill, but just with mindset, where he's had plenty of opportunities to move to a bigger club and make that jump, and he hasn't taken it. And I think that the reason why he does so well in the Serie A is because he's comfortable and he doesn't have the pressure. So would he be an upgrade for us? Absolutely. Would he be someone that could make us compete on that Champions League elite level? I don't think so. And I mean, I know anything can happen, but I don't know how he would fit in with all that pressure, because if he does come in, he's coming into the Champions. He's coming penalty merchant. He's coming in with high expectations, because everybody's going to be looking, going, yeah, Milan struggled with their right side last year. Who's coming in? And we saw even last year in the Euros, yeah, he did okay, but once Chiesa came in, he was done. Like, Chiesa cemented that spot instantly. So I'm not totally convinced on him. And even if I were, dealing with Sassuolo seems to be like dealing with Torino in the past. The amount of money that they're asking for their players is absolutely ridiculous. And it seems like every time their names are mentioned in the media, it's like a million euro gets added to the price. So I don't think that it would be worth it sporting wise. I also don't think it would be worth it financially, because if next year's objective is compete for Serie A again, yeah, that would be great. But if next year's objective is compete for Serie A plus make strides in the Champions League, I don't think he really takes us to that next level.
Miguel, what do you think?
I completely agree with Sabrina. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of Berardi. He's always been kind of that Milan killer whenever we've played him in the Serie A. But realistically, if we sign him, is he
Gotta
gonna
like
make?
fired.
Yes, that too. But like realistically, if we sign him, is he really gonna help us in the Champions League? He has no Champions League experience. He doesn't know that pressure. Hell, you even saw in the first game of the Champions League when we played against Liverpool, the entire squad was basically shitting their pants. Like we need players who can take that chip on their shoulder and like, hey, the pressure's on. Okay, this is my time to shine. So Berardi he's a great guy. He'd do well for us in Serie A, but if we're making strides in the Champions League, this is not the signing that we need to sign.
I think with Berardi, I think he's a fine Serie A player. And I think I was even, I think I at one point tweeted his numbers out. This was probably like back in January or February of like his last 6 seasons, right? But mind you, this guy he's 27 years old. He feels like he should be like in his like early 30s, because he's actually been playing, I think, since 2012, 2013. So he has a lot of years under his belt. He has a lot of experience and a lot of good years under his belt as well. And from optics, you look at the numbers and you're like, why isn't anybody jumping in on him? And I think, Sabrina, you make an excellent point. Like some players are, again, this might sound like an indictment on his ability, but are like they're mid-table legends, mid-table heroes. You might take Berardi out of Sassuolo and he might be half the player. He might be a player that gets 6 goals, 7 assists, and they're good numbers, but when you're spending 30 to 35 million, like the number that's being thrown around here, you get a little bit concerned, because again, I always revert back to, are you willing to break your club record fee for this guy? if that's what it's going to cost, right? 30 to 30, like 40 million. Like those are the numbers. I said the same thing about Zaniolo, who has about the same goal production as Salamakers last year. He hasn't been a guy that's been 7, 8, 9 goals, 10 goals. A player that I see that is consistently putting up these numbers in Serie A that maybe didn't get talked about too much was someone like Luis Alberto, who was like a 10 goal, 10 assist guy for like 3 years in a row. And he was a big reason why Immobile was able to be the player he was. Now I'm speaking obviously on different positions here, but you get the point. Like, I just think, if we're thinking bigger picture here, I think Milan needs to have a shrewd signing that has the upside to be a true game breaker on the right side. In many ways, like the addition they made with Leao. Like, yes, Leao cost a lot up front. Yes, he didn't have the big body of work, but man, the potential was there. Now you're starting to see like this guy's a star. I think Berardi, this is his ceiling. Fine player, fine Serie A player, but I get a little bit concerned about the what's the phrase? Big fish in a small pond type issue with Berardi, where would it surprise you if he made a big move, flopped, and then went back to Sassuolo and went up dominating again? It wouldn't surprise me. So I don't know. I would let Juve do what they want because I think apparently Juventus is in for him. But I always find it interesting, right? If Sassuolo is dealing with Juve, they somehow get great terms, the formula of the transfers in favor of them. But anybody else, they get bent over the barrel and they have to spend a fraction more, right? So I like Berardi. I've defended him quite a bit, but at these numbers, I just can't do it. If it was 20 million and we can maybe put the rest of the money somewhere else and get another player, then maybe that's a different conversation. But the fee is too much. The ask price is just too high.
I'll share my 2 cents here on the player. I think Berardi here fits into a special category of Italian players, and it's a little bit of this is of the toxicity and the the narcissism of Serie A and the retention of its players. Berardi's on a list of players like Belotti, Immobile, per se, Insigne, guys who at one point, and this is Berardi's moment right now, that offers are coming for the player. Now, because of the toxicity of the clubs where these astronomical fees and the negotiations are being pushed back so long and so. Like Belotti leaving Torino was something that every transfer market we read, but of course nothing ever happens. Even this season, Belotti coming to Milan. And these are players that are there's rumors of them looking for a big move, but they always are stuck on that Serie A team. And, no disrespect to them or that team. These guys are not being judged as big game players only when they get called up to the national level. So a player like Immobile, for example, who's scoring boatload of goals in Serie A, can't perform at the Euros. He's not being looked at as a big game player. It's a Serie A merchant is what some of these players might look at. I mean, if you look at the recent years, how many Italian players that are playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona, Manchester City, Liverpool? It seems like right now some of these players that had the opportunity to go ahead and get the big move out, Belotti, Immobile, now Berardi, might not happen.
Potentially. Arsenal apparently want him.
It could be. It could go down this road of some of these Italian players not being able to go ahead and leave Italy and being stuck there. And, I don't want to see some of these players at Sassuolo. Like, don't get me wrong, like Berardi, Raspadori, Scamacca, these are all players that could go ahead and thrive outside of Sassuolo. But is Milan really going to go ahead and go into Berardi with huge fees, no Champions League minutes? It's a risk. And I don't think this is a player whose profile we should go after. I think he's great for the league. If we're going to go ahead and boost our attack, he can definitely go ahead and provide a few goals here and there when we're playing certain teams. But it sounds like, the fan base here wants someone or a few players here that could go ahead and make the impact in the Champions League. And with that, I think I don't have any big name profile here graphic for us to show, but I'll go ahead and pull up another attacking player that we discussed here. and we'll go ahead and just discuss on how hopefully he will go ahead and boost our attack here. And I know that with Zlatan Ibrahimovic possibly renewing and the big games that Giroud performed that this season against Lazio, Napoli, I almost said Atalanta. I meant to say Sassuolo here. Brings in a little bit of the question on how he's going to go ahead and fit into the picture. But here's the big man, the super sub. My background. No, there he is, Divock Origi. And these are some of his stats from 21-22. He actually didn't get a lot of minutes. I looked into a lot of his time at Liverpool this last season, and he spent a lot of that with injuries here. A couple of muscle strains, ankle injuries here and there. But the matches he did go ahead and get to play in, got more than a handful of minutes and, had some kind of attacking contribution, whether that be an assist or a goal. I'll just go ahead and, the name speaks for himself. Guys, what do you think of Divock Origi coming to Milan?
The more I think about this and the more I look at our squad, build and how we're structured, the more I'm actually warming up to this for several reasons. Let's look at age, right? I think there's a misconception that he's an older player, which is not the case. I think he's 26 years old. And he's got Premier League experience. He's actually played in the Champions League. He scored big goals. And I think he's a player that, provided we do address the right wing, provided we do get a number 10, and we get the deal done for a Leao, which I do think is going to happen, is it far-fetched or unrealistic for me to expect Origi to be like a 13 goal scorer? No. I think it's Serie A. I think he could be totally fine if he gets the actual substantial minutes. But I mean, you have the numbers up here: 6 goals, 4 assists in 18 matches. I don't have the actual minutes in front of me, but he makes the most of his actual minutes. And I think if we put him in the right situation with the right supporting cast, because that's been an issue for years with us, right? We can bring any type of striker in you want. Look at what we have at right wing and left wing. Look what we have at number 10. We don't get enough service. We always talked about service. I think with this squad the way it is, and if we add a couple players, I think Origi can be a serviceable striker for us. I'm not saying that we shouldn't maybe consider a move for a striker in the next couple of years, right? Because you're going to look at the squad and think, well, Ibrahimovic is on his last legs. Giroud's 35. Yep. You're going to need a striker eventually, but look where the striker market is, guys. It's ballooning. Do you really want to spend 40 million, 45 million for Scamacca? Are we really that certain that Scamacca is going to provide the same amount of goals as Origi can? I don't know. I know people rave about Scamacca, but I think that Origi is going to do a pretty good job for us. I think people are a little bit panicking too much without maybe knowing the full picture and looking at the player himself and how he fits the team versus his actual numbers. And I do, again, we all talk about the experience in the Champions League, right? We want players who have played at that level. Origi has. He scored big goals, guys. Like that's important. That's important to think about. He knows what it takes to play at a big club too. That's also very important when you're getting a player who's coming to the Champions of Italy, wants to be playing in the Champions League, is going to be getting a ton of minutes. So I'm starting to really warm up to this. But how do you guys feel initially as we potentially get ready to announce this deal?
I only have something short to say about Divock Origi is the fact that his player profile is a little bit different than Giroud and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, where they are big number 9s. I'm just interested to see how with Divock Origi, even Renato Sanches and Leao, what the fluidity in the attack is going to look like, where it's going to come from. Is it going to be so much left side dependent? Are we going to go ahead and see a striker here who can go ahead and break the lines by making off the shoulder runs? Because we didn't really see much of playing a through ball to Zlatan and Giroud last season, where they would be in the box kind of players. So player like Divock Origi, a little bit of a different profile from the other two strikers. I see some positives with this, but I'm going to be honest, my expectations are a little bit high due to him being a player coming from a big club and has done big achievements. If he's going to go ahead and come into Milan now that we are looking for high results, I expect, a little bit from him. And a little bit of that comes with being involved in a lot of goal contributions, whether that be goals and assists. just being a big part of the attack, because that's where I thought we lacked a lot last season. And I know, again, the right wing, we mentioned it. And so just going to keep it there. What about you guys, Miguel, Sabrina?
Personally, I'm a fan of this move. Divock Origi is kind of one of those players who fits the profile of, didn't get enough playing time at Liverpool, was kind of on the fringes and has something to prove. And he strikes me as the signing of Giroud when Giroud came last season, and people were like, why are we signing Giroud? He's old, he's not going to do anything. Origi has the Champions League experience. He has Premier League experience. He scored some really big, important goals for Liverpool, and I think that when we're in those tough spots where we're in a game where we just can't find anything up top or we need some new creativity, Pioli can bring him off the bench, give him 20, 25 minutes, and he can make a big difference to our squad. Him coming in, I expect at least 10 goal contributions, whether it's goals and assists. But I think that this is a good signing for us, and it's a free transfer, not too high on the wages. I think that he can really come here and do something big for us.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. I know people were not too happy about it when it first was announced. But I think he brings the right mentality. His coach, his teammates speak really highly of him. And yeah, we've got the youth, which is great, but we do need players like this that have been there, that have done that before. And like you were saying, Miguel, that, if we need something, he can be an impact, whether it's off the bench or if he's starting, which is something that we saw really hurt us in last year's Champions League. Sometimes we just couldn't find the answer. We couldn't find someone to unlock anything, but he has the experience in other leagues and he has the experience in the Champions League. So, I mean, I'm not going to try and take anything away from Giroud or Ibra ability-wise, but we saw this year that we were, and I think Texas Groove was saying it too, Giroud and Zlatan is one healthy striker. And it's true. We need someone who's going to be able to make that difference for us when we're just not getting it out of our strikers that we have because of health reasons or whatever it might be. Yes, it was Macias that did something for us in the Champions League, but Frost, I know that was I think that was just a career highlight for him. I don't think he's the type of player that's going to continue to do that, but we do need those moments of magic, and who better to do that for us than a player who's done it before, who's been there before. He's won the Champions League. He knows what it takes. And I think that's a lot of useful information he could pass on to the younger players in the squad that are looking to make an impact in the competition themselves.
I think the one thing too, guys, that I want to just bring up, and then you guys, we can move on to something else here. But I think the one reservation or the one maybe issue I have with this deal is the wages he's potentially getting, seeing a bit steep. I think they're somewhere upwards of like 4 million net, maybe 4.5. You guys can get the
but he would qualify for the preferential tax treatment. So I think that's why they're able to offer those higher wages. Like if we got someone who's in Italy, like Bremer, even though he's not Italian, but like someone who's been playing in Italy, we can't do that. But I think for the players, that they're thinking of that going, because that directly impacts Milan. So more of a break that they get on taxes, the more wages they can offer. So I think that's a really big draw, and why the scouting team has been looking outside of Italy for players.
I think the one other thing too, I know we were talking about like domestic purchases versus abroad, foreign purchases. I think the way we're seeing this sort of Renaissance era, or this sort of French Revolution and all the talent that's in the French sectors of football, I think that's where I could see Milan going with the next potential attacks, or even I obviously know Club Brugge with CDK and Noah Lang, but I think there's such a premium to pay when you're doing like an Italian transaction, where you're going to pay a premium to these teams because they're going to be playing against you, right? We see that all the time in the Premier League. So I think from what I'm reading about, with Noah Lang, I mean, he seems like he could be available for like 20 million, and he puts up good numbers. The issue I have with him is his personality, and some of the things he says in the media. but I think that's where I think Milan should be going. I'm not sold on Zaniolo for that money. I'm not sold on Berardi for that money. I think they can get value elsewhere, similar to what they did with Leao. And then the upside is a little bit more profound and much more substantial. But yeah, I think that's, getting back to what you just said about the tax benefit there. I think that obviously does play into it. The fact that they can give him convincing wages, but you also get the benefit on Milan's wage bill, so they can maybe look to stretch elsewhere. And then the one thing I want to add about Origi, and I promise this is the last thing, and I think it's a very important element that Milan have to look and consider with every move they do make. Of course, I just referenced Lang here, but I'm going to reference Origi again. Fit within this squad. I think he'll fit so extremely well within this squad. We know Klopp spoke highly of him, and they seems like we're really going to miss. For all the star power they have in this Liverpool squad, Klopp was like, we're really going to miss Origi. He was such a big player for us. I think just like Giroud, Origi is going to come into the squad, and he's going to mesh and jive so well with guys like Tomori, guys like Tonali, Benacer, Giroud, Ibrahimovic. And I think there's something to be said about the actual chemistry and the dynamic that Pioli and Milan have built with a lot of their acquisitions. That's how they were able to win a lot of games last year. That's, I think, was a huge part of why they became champions. So that's just something else that I look to have as a feather in the cap for the Origi signing. I think that will definitely help bring the most out of him as well with this move.
Well said. Well said. Well, I only have two more names here that we'll go ahead and chit chat about as we're hitting here the hour mark. Don't want to go ahead and go over too soon here, but another name coming out of Belgium here, that is Charles de Ketelaere. I have difficulties pronouncing that. If you guys
We're just getting Salamakers, so I think we'll get here eventually. I don't really know how to say his name.
It's hard trying to type out Salamakers on your phone without Googling it or having it up.
My iPhone just remembered it now, so every time I type in SA,
everyone just puts Alexis there. Now
yeah.
we finally got the name now.
But a profile coming out of Club Brugge here, Charles de Ketelaere. These are his stats, 21-22. Having played 49 matches, gentleman here played so many competitions between domestic cups, Champions League, even his own domestic, putting up numbers like 18 goals, 10 assists. Unfortunately, he was also, just like Renato Sanches, not putting any of those numbers up in the Champions League. So a little bit different situation for him playing for Club Brugge. Maybe the expectations are not so high to go ahead and be putting up a lot of big numbers against big teams in the Champions League, but a player very well utilized by the club. I'll be the first one to be completely honest. I'm not out here watching Club Brugge matches. So in terms of the player abilities, based on a little bit of what's floating around on the media and, this highlight videos, it looks like this is a gentleman who can be versatile to play the 10 and the right wing position. Who's capable to go ahead and bring a tall attacking presence in the attack, as well as breaking the lines, making the ball movements. I don't really have any players that I could go ahead and compare him to kind of give an idea. Maybe if any of you guys have any further input, you can go ahead and give on the player. Again, I know we chatted earlier about the right wing position being that staple signing, especially if we're going to get rid of one of Junior or Alexis. And then what does that look like reintroducing another youngster from Belgium over at the right wing position? So just some thoughts there, guys.
I mean, oh no, I'm sorry, you go.
I'll go ahead and say I like the profile. Given I don't know too much about the player, he's made consistent Champions League appearances with his Club Brugge, and this signing kind of strikes me as what we did when we went for Leao a couple of seasons ago. Young, promising player. He's had that league experience, and now it's time for him to make that big move where he finds himself in a league and he kind of progresses, kind of like Leao. Leao came in his first season. We saw glimpses. His second season, we saw some stuff, but he wasn't fully defined. And this season we finally saw the fruits of his labor. This is kind of the signing that, I think is, on our hands here. This guy, from what I've seen in his clips, he has that technical ability and he has that versatility that we're looking for. And I think that having him, in our attacking midfield or even on our right wing, I think that it would be beneficial because, as we've harped on before, Macias and Salamakers just quite aren't that next step level. So I think that if we take a chance on him, we have to be really patient with him and give him time. But I think that there is some promise here.
I want to go ahead and rebuttal that, Miguel, because it kind of sounds a little bit of what Favredo here in the chat is saying. Are we willing to allow him to grow on this team? Which, personally, if we look at another person, his similar age and style, Daniel Maldini, who's not been given a lot of minutes here, an opportunity, maybe, even Brahim Diaz, who's kind of fallen out after his performances. I know that him coming into the team, you'll be fighting for the spot, especially if we also bring in Renato Sanches and keep Alexis Salamakers. Do you think Milan is going to go ahead and give him the time, maybe the space to work and flounder?
I mean, personally, I think that they'll give him the time. You look at a guy like Pioli, he seems like he knows how to rotate the squad well enough to give everybody some type of minutes. And, if he's not getting minutes in the first team, I'm pretty sure they'll send him to the Primavera and he'll get minutes down there, and then they'll check on him and see what happens. I think really with this signing, it's kind of just one of those things where it's like we have a promising player. I think that Pioli's a guy who can bring out the best in him. Brahim Diaz had his chances. Daniel Maldini didn't really have his chances. I think Maldini is kind of one of those players that just needs to go out on loan somewhere and get playing time because he's not going to get it at Milan. But personally, I think that if he was to come in, I think that he would get time to grow with the team.
I think the one thing that I think that was, you said that was Derek that asked that question, right? Whether or not he would get the time. I'm torn between the type of acquisition that I'm looking for from the right wing position, right? Are we looking for like a ready-made star that's more established, that can play in the Champions League, can make an impact? Or are we looking for another, like, not project player, because I think that's something that we should try to move forward with. We need to get more established, like, talent that is ready to be a star potentially. I think for me, when I look at the addition like this, I still think while Milan have the backing from Redbird now, they're going to be able to make more impactful signings. I don't see them being able to go and say, hey, we're going to spend 50 to 60 million out of one, singular player. I think they still need to follow this model of being shrewd on players that, if you spend 30 to 35 million on, that if you do choose to sell them down the road, you're able to get them, able to sell them for double the price. Rafael Leao is a perfect example. He's a player we want to build around. We all know that. But we all know that money talks, right? And in the event that a big offer came for him and Real Madrid wanted to offer us 120 million, that's a phenomenal return on investment. So I think Milan still have to follow that approach. We aren't at that position where we can spend, I don't know, 60 to 70 million on one player, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, like some of these Premier League sides. Like I'm seeing Man United already, they're ready to get rid of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And I'm like, did they spend like 60 to 70 million on this guy like a couple seasons ago? And he was supposed to be like this big top defensive player. Now they're letting him go. Still can't afford to make those deals. And I know when we touched on Redbird, right? I know that was something we were going to maybe discuss, but this Moneyball aspect, right? And their connections to Fenway Sports Group. I think that there's something to be said about having the money, but still not just irresponsibly spending it on players that have a lot of risk. I think Milan are still going to follow this sort of approach where they're going to get talent somewhere on a maybe a little bit more expensive, but that has so much more tremendous upside. And when I look at a player like this, I think this can be something potentially, not saying the same player and the same impact and go on to have the same career, but something like what City did when they got Kevin De Bruyne, where He had a great year, Wolfsburg. They spent, I think, 50 to 60 million, and now he's one of the best midfielders in the world. Not saying this guy could be him, but you get the point, right? Like going that route where there's more upside in the long term, but the player can still make an impact in the short term because of the money you're spending, if that makes sense.
Yep. You're muted.
Thank you. Well, I will go ahead and say, guys, that this is going to go ahead and be a very long mercato. There's transfers, rumors, and news that are coming out almost every day regarding Milan. Yes, a lot of it could be refreshed news with the legal players, but it looks like we still have, again, this is only June. We still have July and a little bit of August there to go ahead and see how these negotiations and who we go ahead and bring into the club. And I'm sure that we'll go ahead and connect again here on Milan Reports to go ahead and catch up on maybe some signings that we actually committed to or other news that go ahead and pop up. So I know that we're leaving off with this huge question on what's going to go ahead and happen at the right wing. If Renato Sanches is going to go ahead and be a Milan player by sometime next week, that's going to go ahead and be pretty close here. So always stay tuned to that. We'll go ahead and see him with the shirt, hopefully. But guys, I just want to go ahead and say very thankful. Sabrina, Miguel, Matt, you guys are able to join us on the show. Everyone, as always, sharing our input here. A little bit different this time. We're not doing post-match discussion. We're discussing on a few players. Showed up some graphics. I thought that was really exciting. And just want to go ahead and see if you have any closing thoughts here before I go ahead and wave everyone goodbye.
I was just going to say, guys, it's June 8th. I know you're probably looking at what Inter might be doing with Dybala. They're going after Bellanova, and they're seeing all these sorts of potential acquisitions for Inter and Juve. You're thinking, what is Maldini doing? Why is he sitting on a beach in Ibiza? Why aren't we getting players? Why aren't we announcing this guy, that guy? Have we not forgotten what Maldini and Mazzara were able to do? I think people are under this impression that it's June, we have to announce guys now or we're going to fall short or we're going to be falling behind. Like, relax. We just won the champion. We just won the Scudetto a couple weeks ago. Trust in Maldini, trust in Mazzara. We have some guys coming in. I'm fully confident in this management. So just calm. I know people are going to panic. That's what Milan fans do. We're used to it for so many years. I get that. We still have that PTSD that kicks in, but just have some patience. Let the market unfold, and we'll of course keep you updated on anything that does come in.
Absolutely. Daily articles come out here on Twitter, guys. You can go ahead and check them out. I know Wage here is really good at posting out as much Milan content, and that includes transfer news. And as more of it piles up, once it gets too heavy with the transfer news, we'll go ahead and come back here live to go ahead and break it down for everyone, discuss some player rumors. But I just want to go ahead and say thank you again for everyone who's joining in. It was great. Everyone's comments in the chat, questions, really were able to go ahead and dive into those questions and branch out into some great answers. So I want to thank again one more time, Matt, Sabrina, and Miguel, and just hope that everyone the Milan side has a great rest of your day. Great evening, good morning, wherever you are.